During the course of life, the cells of the outer layer of the epidermis are sloughed off. This means that the skin must continually renew itself by replacing the sloughed off cells with new ones. Those new cells are created in the lowest level of the epidermis, the stratum basal. The stratum basal consists of a layer of columnar stem cells. These stem cells continually undergo mitosis, producing new skin cells. As new cells are produced, they push the older cells upward toward the skin's surface. As the cells are pushed upward, they stop dividing and instead produce keratin, a tough, fibrous protein. The keratin replaces the cytoplasm and nucleus in each cell. The cells flatten, and as they move farther away from their blood supply, they die. By the time the cells reach the outermost layer, called the stratum corneum, all that is left of the dead cells is their keratin. The newly arriving flattened cells, called keratinocytes, replace the dead cells that flake away with daily wear.
I think I'm going to have to get a different computer up here so the volumes will work, because I think it has to do with that computer. Okay, so going back, in the epidermis layer we have keratin. So, still talking about epidermis, we have what's called melanocytes. So melanocytes, just like they sound, produce melanin. Melanin is very important not only just to give us the color of our skin, which is genetically inherited, but it's actually to protect the underlying layers. So this layer here is very important. That's the one that goes through mitosis and goes through it pretty frequently. And we don't want any types of mutations or things occurring because of sunlight coming through. And that's why they tell you, don't do tanning beds, if you go in the sun, do sunblock. All those things is to protect this underlying layer. Because if you're getting some type of exposure to it, then you could have a mutation and end up with, like we said, some type of cancer. Or melanoma. So cancer of a melanocyte. Melanin protects the nucleus, so those underlying layers. The amount, again, is genetic, so it's going to tell you whether you're going to be dark or fair skin. And just because you're fair skin doesn't mean you won't cannot get skin cancer. You still can. So protection is very important. What does our skin do for us? Well, one, it protects it. We call it our primary defense is our skin. So if you ever hear in nursing that you have a break in your primary defense, then that means you have a break in the skin. So if patients have surgery or anything, then we say that they're at risk for infection because they've had they've had an incision, so they have a cut in that primary defense. Big deal. A barrier to the outside world. It also produces vitamin D. The video told you how we need vitamin D for our bones, and actually it helps to increase the absorption of calcium. We all know that calcium is very important for building bones, making them strong. You know, they tell you to drink your milk. Well, that's why they fortified it with vitamin D, to help the absorption of calcium. But now research has found that vitamin D also plays an important role in your immune system. So we really need some vitamin D. Get out in the sun. They've also tried to link it with depression and things as well. So they said that may be why you see higher incidences of depression during the winter months, because we don't see as much sun. We're not outside as much. Sensory perception, so, pressure receptors, we feel touch, we feel the temperature in the room right now. That's all detected through our skin. Thermoregulation, another big deal with our skin. Our vessels within the skin are able to dilate. So if you're working out, your face gets really red and hot because we're trying to release heat. So they dilate and bring blood closer to the skin. If we're cold, what happens to those vessels then? They shrink, they constrict. So they pull blood away from the out surface, and they'll actually pull blood to the core, so your middle parts. And what do you do physically when you start to get cold? Do you just outstretch yourself? No, you start to kind of curl up. And a really big warm organ is that liver. So we'll kind of babies will kind of curl up and try to stay warm as well.
I was told like if you're going between the water building and the swimming, it's like bad to go from the hot tub straight to the pool.
Yeah, because it's a drastic temperature change. It's not a gradual. Anything that is drastic like that, it's hard on our system. So yeah, it's not good. But we do it, don't we? Okay, so thermal regulation. Also, we'll look at here in a little bit at sweat glands, how we can perspire, we can get water on our skin, and that would help evaporate or take away the heat. Cherish.
I was going to ask, how is it that if, I just heard this, but how is it if a child can hold more body heat than an adult can? Like,
No, they can't.
that's what I thought.
No. Your infants, your little ones, they're at higher risk of hypothermia than we are. They've got actually a larger surface area than we do. So that means in proportion to their size, they've got more outside than what's kind of inside, which doesn't always make sense. But your elderly and your infants, your young babies, anyone under a year, are at high risk for hypothermia or vice versa, overheating, heat strokes and things.
Like put a hat on them.
Yeah, that's why they always have little, cute little hats, and they're always swaddled up really tightly. Yeah, heat loss is a big thing for them. New skin cells produce which tough fibrous protein? What was that called? Keratin. Keratin. Okay, so moving from talking about the epidermis and its two layers, the stratum corneum, so crust, stratum basal layer down here, your base, where we're having mitosis occur, cellular reproduction quickly, pushing up towards the top, and those cells becoming keratinized and sloughing off. Now we'll start to go a little deeper into the dermis layer, where we have some other structures here. So another thing to look at before we talk about hair is we have vessels, and these vessels even go up into the dermis. So again, you need to remember what all is in the dermis. We've got hair in the dermis, we've got vessels, we've got glands, we've got muscles, we've got all nerve endings, all kinds of stuff going in the dermis. Where the epidermis, other than that basal layer there, is dead. So how do we actually get nutrients to that live part, the basal layer? Because there's no blood vessels there. So they're actually diffusing and pulling that from the dermal layer, so from this dermis. So we'll actually diffuse and pull nutrients from that layer. Okay, so let's look at hair. Let's talk about hair. Oh, okay. Let me talk about hair. So with hair, it's keratin as well. Depending on how long you can grow it, we've got different types of hairs. Some may be brittle, some may be a little stronger because of the oil glands. So we have a hair bulb or root, and that's the actual live part of the hair. So that's what's growing. So you doing things to the outside, which is dead, just like the top layer of your skin, does nothing for the actual growth of the hair. So it's all this guy down here. And you can see that is supplied in that papilla with blood vessels, and that's where we're getting oxygen, we're getting nutrients to help that hair grow. Wrapped around that hair, we have what's a hair follicle. Again, it protects it, nourishes it, and helps that hair grow on up out. You'll notice that you have sebaceous glands that are always associated with a hair. So that's important to know that sebaceous glands associate with hair, where sweat glands do not. So we don't have, we have an Apocrine gland, but we don't have an actual Apocrine gland pictured here. I think we'll talk about them in a little bit. The sebaceous gland is going to secrete oils, and that's what helps to oil that shaft, that hair, and keep it nice and strong. So actually your oilier hairs are the ones that can grow really long because they don't get dry and brittle and break. Another cool thing about hair is this erector papilla muscle that's right here. What do you think that thing does? Yeah. So when you're cold, what do you do when you get cold? Other than that, you shiver. So your muscles contract, and that actually produces heat. When muscles are working and doing things, they produce heat. Well, with the big muscles contracting and you shivering, this muscle will even contract. So it'll contract and shorten, and when it does, that hair will stand up on end. Another time, when is another time that those hairs will stand up? When you're not cold. When?
Emotions when you're frightened.
Yeah, when you're scared. You know, you feel the hair on the back of your neck raise. Because what do kitty cats do when they get mad or scared? Their hair does the same thing. And gorillas, they do the same thing. So your chimpanzees and things like that. Why does their hair come up? What does that do? What is that for?
Make you look bigger.
It is. Same thing with us. Except for we still do have hair all over our entire body, but it's not as thick as it would have been if, chimpanzees and gorillas and things like that. But that's what it's really for. It's to make you look big and scary. Oh, hair. I think that's about it on hair. So, like our skin, what cells give our skin their color? Melanin. So what gives our hair its color? Melanin. So, for me, my natural hair color is really dark brown. I produce a lot of melanin. So, for Jason, who has blonde hair, does he produce a lot of melanin? No, he does not produce as much.
How is that, like,
That's genetics again. So, what happens with gray hair when we get old?
Don't they lose melanin?
Yeah, they do. They're not producing any melanin. So that's why it's gray in color. And that's why even with black hair, we can turn gray.
so how does it work if, like, there's two, one hair with that?
There's dominant traits.
So it's
So what's usually dominant? Brown or blonde? Brown. Blondes are recessive. That's why you don't see as many. Reds are really recessive. They're going to be extinct. So you're very special. Okay, so nails, moving on from hair, and it's keratinized just like the skin. And it has melanocytes in it, making it color. We don't have any melanocytes here, but it is still keratin. Our nails are still considered keratin. I believe this is on the labeling. Again, I'll write on the board everything that's on the labeling so you'll know. They told you some interesting things about the nails, growing faster on dominant hand. That's the one you use more, so of course they're going to break more. The longer fingers growing longer, because again, those are the ones that we use and they break. But you do need those nails to help for pincher, grass things that we do. Okay, so let's go back to the dermis. So epidermis with its two layers, stratum corneum, the crust where everything is dead, flat, stratified squamous epithelial cells. And then the very base layer, your stratum basal or base, where mitosis is occurring. And we're producing new cells, pushing them up towards the top. And as they move towards the top, they become dead, flat, and keratinized. Then we got into the dermis where we have a hair, we have a sebaceous gland here. Then we have, apical glands here are associated with the hair as well. So sebaceous glands produce sebum or oil. So they're associated with the hair, but they're to keep that hair growing long and healthy and not breaking, becoming brittle and dry and breaking. Apical gland, which is associated with hair, what do you think it produces? It does produce a type of sweat, but it's a little different.
The body odor sweat?
Yeah, it does. And really, is it your apical glands that are found in the armpits, the groin areas, are they producing odor, body odor?
No,
they really are not. It's what?
The bacteria that's breaking it.
Yeah. And so, guys are normally a lot more stinkier than we are. Why do you think that is, though? Because we both have apical glands. Huh? No?
The testosterone.
No? It's just a physical thing. It has to do with,
They move more. Look,
because what do we normally do, especially in our armpit areas?
shit.
We shave them. Guys don't always shave them. So bacteria, that's what's producing that odor. A dead body, it's bacteria that's producing the odor, not the actual body itself. It's the bacteria releasing gases. So armpits with hair, bacteria can hang on a little better and get trapped. So, you know, if you get a lot of air to them, you know, of course, wash, clean, remove the bacteria, then you won't have the smells.
I know what I'll do. I'll do
Shaving your armpits? Okay, so epicene glands, they're really for pheromones. So it gives you your natural odor. They've done lots of cool studies about that. One of them seemed like a pretty simple one. I can't remember how long they had the gentlemen's or the guys wear the white t-shirt, but they would have them wear them for so long, so many days without showering. No, they couldn't use any fragrant soaps and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, and then they'd wrap them up in these plastic Ziploc bags, and then they would have the women smell them.
Oh,
And
I do that.
yes, and they would determine, well, I like this smell more than I like all these others. And you really do have a preference
That was
for type of.
They actually said soap is just soap. They said soap doesn't get you clean; it's just the smell.
Yeah.
Because water naturally makes you vomit from it.
Yeah. So only thing soap will do is it can attach to the oils and remove the oil, and with the oil sometimes dirt is trapped because of the oil. But yeah. So it was interesting to see that, you know, types of, and it all came down to genetics, the diversity. You want genes that are very diverse from yours. And that means your offspring will be stronger and healthier. Think about dogs, purebred dogs compared to your Heinz 57. Usually, which ones are healthier and stronger and more vibrant and live longer? Nope. It's your Heinz 57s. Because their genes are very diverse. Whereas you've got lots of inbreeding and things, mutations occurring when you have a small population. So the more diverse, the better.
Who's our Heinz 57?
That's your mixed breeds.
Oh, that's
They're not
mixed.
purebreds. They're usually live very long and they're usually pretty healthy. Whereas your purebreds have lots of genetic problems. They'll have lots of cancers and all kinds of stuff going on with them. Okay, so sebaceous glands, sebum or oil. Your apocrine glands, we think of smelly, but they're not. And then eccrine glands, those are your sweat. That's sweating. So they're going to be found, we kind of have them, they're not everywhere. You know, you don't normally sweat on your stomach, but think about when you're working out or you get really hot, your back. So you have eccrine glands on your back, the back of your neck, your forehead. You have lots on your hands and the bottoms of your feet. So again, feet, they stink because why though? It's not the actual sweat. It's the bacteria. So if they're wet and you leave them wet, you know, especially the socks and things, then yeah, you're going to get bacteria in there and then it's going to stink. And that's why powders, things that keep them dry are a good thing. Okay, eccrine, sweat, evaporates. I seen one of your quiz questions was a really good one. Because here in Oklahoma, what type of weather do we have? Dry or humid? Humid. And then you go somewhere where it's very dry, like Arizona, and it could be 104. Does it feel like Oklahoma 104? No. Or if you've ever been to Florida, I mean, you're just standing and you're just sweating and melting. Colorado is very dry. Feels wonderful. And the reason is it feels so much hotter here and miserable here is because when it's wet and humid in the air, that means we've got lots of water in the air, it's not dry, then we can't pull away the sweat. So it just sits there. And if it sits there, the heat sits with it. It's not evaporating off. But at the same time, and you're very dry, we evaporate quickly, and we lose a lot of fluid. So you can dehydrate quickly.
That's why people, when they go to Colorado, my sister has bad asthma. Every time we go to Colorado, she has asthma.
Yeah, it's very dry. Okay, which gland secretes sweat onto the skin? Eccrine. So think of exit. Exit through a duct onto the skin. Exit. Apocrine has to do with hairs, particularly armpits and groin areas. Sebaceous, we think oils. And then ceremonious glands are in your ears where we're creating sebum. So earwax, another type of oil. And it's good. We need that. Don't be cleaning out. You're not supposed to be cleaning out with Q-tips. I know, it feels great, and I do it. And I like try to hide away from my kids so they don't do it because it's a bad habit. But yeah, you're supposed to have it there. It's a type of antibacterial, and it also keeps bugs out. It's hard for them to get in. Yeah, as well as water because it is oily. So it'll keep water out of the ears too. You're supposed to have earwax. It's there for a reason. But as we get old, oh, another cool thing was there are 2 different types of earwax. So it's kind of cool to look at your parents to see what types of earwax they have. Because there's dry
That's why earwax is
and there's wet. And so I have very dry earwax where my husband has wet.
And it looks nasty.
And then both of my kids have wet earwax.
Have you done the candle before?
No, I haven't. Now, you know, a lot of your older people will do those because as you get older, the earwax gets thicker and it's harder to, you do have to remove some of it.
Yeah, that sounds so nasty.
You have really
That's all good stuff. You're supposed to have that. You're supposed to have that stuff.
I remember when